Welcome to the best of first-person episodes from Phantoms and Monsters. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads.
Jilling Dogman Encounter, Clearfield County, Pennsylvania. I apologize for the delay in regards to the info concerning the Dogmen of Clearfield County. This is going way back for me, but I read your article and thought perhaps it just might help you out a bit. Around 1976-77, in the Madera area of Clearfield County. This would have put me at 6 or 7 years old. We lived just above the town of Madera. It was very remote, few homes in that area, and very wooded. My dad would often patrol with the local officers from the Game Commission. I am pointing this out due to the fact of how he reacted when we saw this thing. He was a big guy, and very little scared him. We often shook our heads when he would go outside at night to scare off a bear with only a pitchfork. He knew wildlife, knew what their habits were, knew if they were going to be a problem on the farm, etc. On this night, we were woken by a loud commotion near our front porch. We had outside cats that hung around the porch, and they would scatter when a raccoon or other animal would approach the front of the house. When they scattered, it was quite loud, hence the noise that woke us. I remember hearing Dad giving his typical angry sigh because he had to get up and see what was out there. He had gone downstairs, the house was quiet, we were all waiting to hear the door shut. Instead we heard Dad let out a bellow. This had us all running for the stairs. He was standing back from the door, gun in hand, and his face was, well, I guess you would say, scared. As I've said, nothing seemed to scare Dad, so seeing that look on his face made us all stand there uncertain. Outside, standing in profile, looking right back at us, and no fear, this thing showed no fear at all. In fact, I remember thinking that it was angry, it just looked mean. It was a canine, certainly not a dog. It looked like a hyena from the front shoulders to the head, the back end was way smaller than the front shoulders and head. I do not remember seeing a tail. The fur was odd, sparse and shaggy looking, it just didn't look like fur, it's hard to explain. The snout was not long and narrow, it was stubby, but big, the whole body was huge. From its back end to its head, it was almost the width of our porch, this would put it at least 7 feet long. It was huge. It stood looking in at us, then looked out towards our barn, back at us again, then just simply, and very slowly, walked a few steps, then it took off. It was so fast, literally it was like seeing a blur of color, then it was gone. We all just stood there, then Mom asked Dad what it was, and Dad yelled for us all to get upstairs. He stayed up all that night, never went outside to check the animals, never even opened the door. Oddly enough, we never talked about it. Nobody ever mentioned it again. I wish I had more information to give you, however, this does give you a possible timestamp. I spent most of my life up there, in that area, and it was a unique area for sure. Many things happened up there that were unexplained, and I was glad to move away when I was 33. I do still live in the Clearfield area, but no more thick forests. Hope this helps a bit. Sincerely, ASM.
Dogman by My Bed. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, I was lying in my bed and I remember clearly, a very large dogman, I guess you would call it, walking into my room. It was standing over me, beside my bed, and picking up my arm and putting it in its mouth, and then nothing. This never seemed like a dream, I remember it so clearly. I remember my mom and her boyfriend were still awake. We lived in a trailer, and their room was at the end of the hall, and mine was the last door on the right, so I could hear them talking, and I could see the light from their bedside lamp glowing off the hallway wall right outside my bedroom door. When I got older I assumed it had to have been a dream, until I heard of dogmen and saw drawings that looked just like what I saw that night. It was like an abnormally tall, large man with a dog's head. The closest thing I've ever found, and the picture that made me believe this is a memory, not a dream, is a painting of dogmen wearing long robes and satchels, carrying large baskets with a castle in the background. Every other depiction looks like a werewolf, but it looked nothing like a wolf. It looked like a man with a domesticated dog's head, like a cross between a beagle and a Weimaraner. I remember clearly trying to scream but nothing coming out, and then him lifting my arm to his mouth and putting my forearm in his teeth, but no pain. It's like that is when I blacked out. I'd love to go under hypnosis and see if I can remember more. CJ.
Dogman of Hawk Hollow Preserve, Illinois. Here's a personal story that was fairly recent. We were driving home from my parents' place in Streamwood, Illinois, and went through Bartlett like we typically do. On Bartlett Road approaching Schick Road there's a prairie forest preserve named Hawk Hollow. That general area is supposedly haunted, especially the park old schoolyard nearby. Now, I've known this and have prayed against this entity, specifically dog-like spirit with a human or human-like face. I have never seen it, but the area has had many reports of general paranormal action, and this dog thing is mentioned. I always keep a lookout when we drive through there because deer might jump out, and because you never know what you'll see. So my wife was driving, and I was looking around for anything weird, and also because I like spotting wildlife. It was dark around 8:30 p.m. this past December. I happened to look down for a second. I think I happened to drop my phone or something, and my wife asks, "Did you see that?" I knew what it was before she said anything else. She knew nothing of my knowledge of the things going on in that area, and I hadn't disclosed my prayers against any evil residing there. I replied, "Did you see something weird?" She said, "I think so. It looked like a shadow that ran across the road." "Did it look like a dog?" I asked. She said it did and was wondering how I knew since I didn't see it. She said it wasn't a solid animal like a coyote, which we see now and then. She said it was transparent and dog-like but drawn out or thin. I then told her a bit about that area. It's funny that it happened to run across when I wasn't watching. I think it's likely aware of God intervening through my prayer, and it's not very happy with me. That's fine with me. I know it's up to no good, and I'm not afraid of it or its brethren. A.M.
Huge Dogman quadruped seen multiple times in Southeast Tennessee. I need help figuring out what is happening in my neighborhood. I live in a very secluded small town in Southeast Tennessee. It's really peaceful during the day, but it gets somewhat strange at night. There's a few houses on my road, but for the most part it's only trees. There were a few occurring events that are all pretty spooky, but the main one is what my friends and I call the Dogman, for lack of a better name. I've only seen it twice in my life. I've lived in this part of town for 3 years. The Dogman has a body shaped like that of a scrawny human. Its bones are very visible. It has fur, but only in patches over its body. Sort of like a dog with mange. Though it has the bodily proportions of a person, it has the head of a dog, and can run extremely fast. Also, it's freaking huge. It is quadrupedal. To preface, my room is at the front of the house. Our front yard is the size of a field. I have the biggest window in the house in my bedroom, and it faces the front yard. I do not have blinds over my window and my bed is in front of it. The first time I saw the Dogman, it was late at night and I was sitting in bed. I saw it running through my yard. Shortly after, my cat, who was an indoor-outdoor cat at the time, came inside growling. The cat was found dead across the creek near my yard this July. He had no visible injuries and was very young and healthy. We still don't know how he died. The second time I saw it was earlier this evening. My friend and I were sitting on my porch. We noticed a very large moving mass on the base of the mountain, which we live right in front of. We decided to get a closer look. My friend stayed behind to watch as my grandfather and I drove down the road to the base of the mountain. I didn't want to drive there alone. As we got near, we stopped in front of the mass. It was a tree. Something then sprinted out from behind it and into the woods to the right of us. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind it was the Dogman. If you have any ideas as to what this is, or how I can go about finding out more about it, I'd love to hear it. This is really freaking us out. SR.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.